Then in Sports Central, we go for our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Ohio State Buckeyes, a team that went 11-2 overall in the 2023 season. A great season that had a disappointing finish for Ohio State. This team was overall really impressive last season, and I would say things are only looking up as we look forward to 2024. This is bound to be a pretty dangerous team in this upcoming season. So we'll be looking at Ohio State here today, the players this team is losing and returning, and predict their schedule top to bottom in this video. So with that, let's get started. Looking at a quick recap of 2023, once again 11-2 being the record. And generally, this was a really impressive team in their first 11 games. They went to South Bend, beat Notre Dame by 3, beat Penn State as well. Those two games were especially impressive. And it really was the defense that stood out this season for Ohio State. Typically, for Ohio State, it's the offense that really stands out. But this season was a bit different in that way. This team didn't allow more than 17 points in any game last season until the Michigan game when they allowed 30 and lost to them by 6. So it really was the defense that was impressive. Their offense had some good games as well. But if you're looking at when this team had to play their better opponents, their defense or their offense wasn't quite as good. They only scored 17 on Notre Dame, 20 on Penn State. Once again, it was just the defense that really got it done here for the Buckeyes last season. And I mean, that Michigan game, that's been basically a college football playoff game the past 3 years or so, because the winner of that eventually has won the Big Ten title and obviously proceeds on to the playoff, and it's been Michigan the past 3 years. And I feel like, though, the tide could be changing back this season. I wouldn't be surprised with Jim Harbaugh off to the NFL and Michigan in a much different position looking forward to 2024. But with that, looking at your roster preview now, Kyle McCord's transferring out, so he is not Ohio State's issue in 2024. Instead, Will Howard's coming in, and this is a guy that is a lot more proven, a lot better, I would say, than Kyle McCord. Will Howard was incredible at K-State, led the Wildcats to some impressive seasons, and so I think for Ohio State to have Will Howard in there, it's going to be huge looking forward to 2024. And this receiving core does lose a couple. Marvin Harrison obviously gone, Cade Stover's gone, Julian Fleming's gone, but Egbuka's coming back, same with Carnell Tate. So second and fourth wideouts coming back, and this team is also overall done pretty well in the transfer portal. So, I mean, despite losing a few of their key players, at least they've done pretty good in the transfer portal. Quinshon Judkins is especially a standout that's coming in from Ole Miss for the backfield. He's going to be alongside Trevion Henderson in there, so this backfield could be really dangerous next season. Trey Adams gone, second running back for this team. He had a small impact, but not nearly as much as Henderson last season. You look at the offensive line, lose one on there, 2 linebackers, 1 in the secondary. So this defense is returning a lot. So I think this defense has got potential to be the best in the country looking forward to 2024. Really do believe that. You got Georgia, who's really going to be tough on defense, I think. And Ohio State's the main other standout, I would say, when it comes to defense. And this offense is only getting better, I would say, looking forward to 2024. So you look at this team top to bottom, this is a really dangerous team, I think, looking forward to 2024. Does this team take back the Big Ten in 2024, though? Obviously, Michigan's they've been that top stand on the Big Ten the past 3 years. They've finally won their national title. And Michigan's in a much different position looking forward to 2024. I feel like Ohio State is in a much better position, at least against them. And I think for Ohio State, I would say they're probably my favorite to win the Big Ten in this upcoming season. But I'll say this as well. Michigan might not be quite as good in 2024, but who is going to be dangerous is Oregon. Big Ten newcomer. The Ducks are especially going to be dangerous. And that's a team that's really going to be able to win, I think, the Big Ten in year one. So Ohio State and Oregon, I would say, are definitely your top 2 in the Big Ten, the 2 most likely teams to win the conference in this upcoming season. But transfer portal and recruiting, mentioned Will Howard coming in from K-State, Kyle McCord to Syracuse. That was an interesting move when that first came out, and McCord off to a much different school in Syracuse, that's for sure. Quinshon Judkins coming in from Ole Miss, lose Trey Adams and Hayden, Julian Fleming off to Penn State, and then Kasmarek coming in from Ohio, tight end. Otherwise, though, this team hasn't done too much in the transfer portal defensively, bringing in Caleb Downs from Alabama. But overall, this is a defense that really hasn't lost a lot. I'll say it again. This defense is going to be especially brutal in this upcoming season. You consider how good they were last year. I mean, this is an experienced team on defense, and the offense, once again, only getting better. I got this team at a 10 on the future forecast. This team is going to be very dangerous for many years to come. I feel like a national title is, it's going to be within reach here the next few years for Ohio State, and they've lost to Michigan the last 3 years. The first thing is getting over that hump, and it's Big Ten's only getting tougher too. Oregon's going to be brutal, but I do really like the future of Ohio State at this current point. Recruiting-wise, the recruiting class is incredible. 5th in the country, 2nd in the Big Ten. Got 4 5-stars coming in, 14 4-stars. So overall, a good recruiting class coming in, and I would say a really positive future for the Buckeyes. But with that, let's take a look at the schedule now. Looking forward to 2024. We got Akron in week 1, Western Michigan, Marshall. So the first 3 games for this team are all extremely easy. And then you got Michigan State on the road, Iowa at home, and then the first true test, I would say probably the biggest game of the regular season for Ohio State. Michigan's pretty big too, but that's going to be Oregon on the road, going on the road to Eugene, taking on, I would say, the second most likely team to win the Big Ten, the second best team in the conference this upcoming season. Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks are going to be tough in 2024. Then you got your bye week, and then Nebraska comes to town, Penn State on the road to start in November. Then you got Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, and then Michigan at home this season to finish out the regular season. So with that, looking at the first month of action, I think you go 4-0 in your first 4 games pretty easily. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, all pretty easy wins. Michigan State, they're going to be kind of hovering around 5-6 wins this upcoming season. They're in a tough spot, really not expecting too much out of them. So I think a pretty easy 4-0 start for Ohio State. This team has some pretty good momentum heading into October. Iowa's going to be the best team that they faced up until that point. But I still got a lot of questions about Iowa. That was a team that was so bad on offense last year. Their defense won't be quite as good. So I think for the Hawks, they'll maybe still be decent, but bad at best in this upcoming season. So that brings up a 5-0 start, and then Oregon on the road. This is probably the biggest game of the regular season. The Ducks are probably the second best team in the Big Ten, but going on the road to Eugene that's a really difficult place to play. I do think Ohio State drops that one, but it's definitely a game where it could absolutely go either way, and it's honestly too early to predict a matchup like that. But I do think that even if you do lose a game in the regular season, it's really no big deal, because obviously there's a 12-team playoff, even though being in the top 4 is very important. Either way, though, there's a pretty good chance that Ohio State and Oregon meet up once again anyway in the Big Ten Championship. But then you got your bye week and then Nebraska. I do think you bounce back, beat Nebraska pretty easily, and then Penn State on the road. This one I see being a bit closer, but Ohio State's the better team there for sure. So I do think the Bucks do pick up a win there. So 7-1 heading into the Purdue matchup. These next 3 are all pretty easy. Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, you pick up 3 pretty easy wins. And then Michigan, I got them at home. And I do think that the reign of Michigan finally ends. I've got the Wolverines at, I think, 10-2 this upcoming season, so still not terrible. But Ohio State versus Michigan, especially with it being in Columbus, I do think Ohio State takes back that title in what's been a huge rivalry game obviously forever. It's one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports, but I do think Ohio State wins that matchup this season. So 11-1 is what I got for Ohio State. I got this at a 7 on strength of schedule. I feel like it's not as bad as I've seen worse for sure. It is difficult though. Oregon, Penn State, both really difficult road games. Otherwise though, Michigan's going to be tough. Iowa could be halfway decent. Who knows about Nebraska, but overall I do think 11-1 is pretty likely for Ohio State, and the ceiling is obviously 12-0. I could really see this team going undefeated. And I would also say this is probably my favorite to win the Big Ten title. I feel like you look at this team top to bottom, they're the most impressive team in the Big Ten. Oregon's definitely a close second. But either way, I feel like, right now I would predict Ohio State Oregon to be the Big Ten title game. I would take Ohio State in that matchup if it were to happen. So as of now, I'm saying 12-0 for the ceiling, 9-3 for the floor in case things go terribly wrong. I would say 11-12 wins this upcoming season is what's most likely for Ohio State. But with that, let me know your thoughts and comments below on Ohio State. Really an interesting team. Looking forward to 2024. And with that, I appreciate you guys watching as always. My name's Evan, this is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.